My glasses are all discombobulated. We can mediate and watch for Sensei. Who? Hi, Spice Shoop. Is it spaceship? Oh, spaceship? Is it spaceship? I think it's just spaceship. Maybe it's just spaceship. Let's see. Okay, we got this open, we got this open, we got this open. Yeah. All right, what's up, everybody? Hello, what's up, stream? How's everybody doing tonight? Hi, Spaceship. Hi, SML. Hi, J Place. Can you guys hear me? See me? Is this up? I think it's up. I don't know if it's up.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, that's a
little bit blurry.
I think we're having some blurriness because...
Maybe it's because I'm in New York. Anyway. Suzanne's back. SML's here. J Place. Are you ever going to do that poll on the show intro? J Place, we did it. And they were like, no, less talking. So, I hear you. Yeah, I thought so. Wait, did you know that SPAISHUP is spaceship? Is it spaceship? Spaceship? I think it's spaceship. Am I saying it right? Give me a thumbs up emoji if I'm saying it right. Which studio am I in? I don't know. What is this, Town Hall?
Town Square.
Town Square. We call it Town Square around here. This is where we all gather with our pitchforks and we decide on, what village we're going to raid. Max Columbus, spaceship. Yes. Okay, cool. Got it. Suzanne. Yes. Over on the Kornacki feed. Come on, Gotti. Wait. The work thing kind of messes that idea up. Heyday. Guess what? Can I tell you something? Kornacki is in the studio that we were in last night. So, yeah, you guys should definitely go over to the Kornacki feed. He's way more interesting. He broadcast from Studio 3A West last night. And now that's where Kornacki is. I like the old intro more. You like to see, 5 stories before we get into it? So, here's my philosophy on that. We only have 1 hour together. And I don't want to waste your guys' time. I want you to get all the information you possibly can. So, an intro is good because it tells you what's coming up, but at the same time, you're just going to hear the same information twice, which, again, lets you know where things are. But I think the more we can fit in, the better. So that's my philosophy, but maybe it'll change. I hear what you're saying. We'll take that under consideration, J Place. What does a 498 stand for, by the way? I know that studio. I saw that studio in Hallie Jackson Now. Who was doing Hallie Jackson Now? I thought Hallie was in today. Was she in? She better not be in New York. If she was in New York and we didn't hang, ooh, that's a diss. Remove the coming up segments when we go to commercial.
2 minutes.
And then just go straight to commercial with no squishiness in between? So Lisa, I don't know if you're listening to this, but J Place says that what we should do is we should bring back the cold open, and then we should get rid of the teases in between coming up.
Teases are extremely important throughout.
Hey, where's your camera, by the way? You can't just be like this voice of God.
Or can I? I will turn my camera on. I will turn my camera on, but teases are actually extremely important during a show.
Teases are actually extremely important during the show. More important during the show than at the top of the show when you're probably going to forget. How did I get into journalism? I just always wanted to see what was happening. Like, I don't want to watch on TV. I want to be like close to it. And so I was just curious. I was really curious about what was going on, how it was working, had a million questions, still do. And yeah, and I'm kind of a little bit of adrenaline junkie. So journalism's a place to be if that sounds like you.
45.
Okay, 45 seconds. Let's do this, guys. Let's start with some election stuff. We've got a Steve Kornacki night. We are so lucky. Here we go, 45 seconds. I'm going to go stand over here, so you guys are going to have to watch from there. Got Diaco back.
Yes, sir.
Here we go.
Darren's
30
gonna
seconds.
cue you to walk,
Okay.
So don't do it yet.
Okay. And then I'm walking to
Right
here. Okay. Okay. Have a good show, everybody. 10 seconds.
That's Lily's line.
Stand by. I don't have to. You just did it for me. 5 seconds. Stand by. 3. Here's the open.
Hey there, I'm Gotti Schwartz, and tonight is primary night with voters heading to the polls in Florida, Wyoming, and Alaska, plus that special election out in California. And just over an hour ago, polls closed in Florida, and we're already starting to see some of those results come in. NBC News projects Republican Representative Wasserman Schultz wins the Democratic primary for Florida's 20th congressional district. We've also got NBC News projecting Representative Brian Donalds wins the Republican primary for Florida governor. He's going to be fighting to succeed Governor Ron DeSantis. And NBC News is projecting that former Attorney General Ashley Moody wins the Republican Senate primary in Florida. NBC News is also projecting that Angie Nixon is going to win the Democratic Senate primary in Florida. Over in Wyoming, the Senate race to watch right now. It's the big one. Republican Congressman Harriet Hageman is running to replace the retired senator there. She is the front runner in a very crowded field of GOP. And then there's Alaska. Like, this is my favorite one. Alaska, the electorate there is answering a very big question tonight. What is in a name? Because a Republican Senator, Dan Sullivan, is running for re-election. He's facing a tough Democratic challenger, Mary Pelota. But get this. This is where it gets very, very interesting. There is another candidate named Dan Sullivan on the ballot. Same spelling and everything. So that's going to be an interesting one. Over in California, voters are also deciding who's going to finish former Congressman Eric Swalwell's term in that special election for his House seat. Let's bring in Steve Kornacki to walk us through the results that we've got so far. Steve, all kinds of primaries being called right now. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, look, the votes came in real fast and a lot of clarity in Florida. Here's the surprise of the hour. It is in the race for the United States Senate, the Democratic primary here. Angie Dixon, an underfunded state legislator, has defeated handily Alexander Vindman. Vindman, this is a name I think folks might remember. He was the whistleblower at the heart of the 2019 impeachment of Donald Trump. He came into this with a ton of national support, a ton of national money. There had been some concerns from Democratic leaders that maybe he was a bit complacent as a candidate. Wow, that proved to be true. He's been upset by Angie Nixon. Nixon, who came at him from the left, who joined the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, during this campaign, who wins this primary. Now, Nixon in the general election is going to face off against Ashley Moody. Moody is the appointed incumbent senator right now. When Marco Rubio left to join the administration, Moody was appointed to replace him. She's now running for the seat on her own. She easily wins the Republican primary. This is not a race. This U.S. Senate race in Florida was not considered, looking ahead to November, a top-tier race. Democrats had been hoping they could make it one, but the Democratic establishment at least, their calculation was based on Vindman winning this primary, not on a candidate as far left as Nixon winning this Democratic primary tonight. So that's the surprise of the hour statewide in Florida. But Gotti, some quickly to show you, though, some big results, too, that have already come in at the House level. There are a number of big House primaries in Florida tonight. Here's one, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Again, big name nationally here, former chair of the Democratic National Committee. Because of the redistricting that took place in Florida, Republicans redrawing maps, Wasserman Schultz actually chose to run in this district. She lives in a different one. There was some controversy This is a plurality black district, but she ran here in a primary, and as you can see here, bit of a splintered, crowded field. She's emerged with a solid victory in this primary. This is an overwhelmingly Democratic district, so it looks like Wasserman Schultz is going to survive the redistricting wars in Florida. Another incumbent here, well, let me show you the Democratic side. Another incumbent here who faced a challenge. This one's interesting in light of what we just showed you in that Senate race. Oliver Larkin is a Democratic Socialists of America endorsed candidate running against Jared Moskowitz, Democratic congressman here. This is in South Florida, Broward, Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, along the coast. Moskowitz, though, easily winning this, easily defeating Larkin. Moskowitz is going to have a difficult general election campaign because Republicans redrew this district to try to knock him out of Congress, to try to put the seat into Republican hands. Trump would have won this seat by almost double digits, and the Republican who's going to oppose Moskowitz, it's not, we don't have a result yet, but Scott Singer, the mayor of Boca Raton, is leading, and a lot of the math of the outstanding vote is pretty favorable to him. So, the other major headline of the hour is right here. Corey Mills, embattled Republican incumbent in Florida's 7th district, with more than 3/4 of the vote counted, Gotti, is trailing Ryan Elijah. And the numbers that have been coming in, the way these have been, it's been getting better and better for Elijah as the night has gone on. So Mills is in serious danger, an incumbent here, a serious danger of losing this primary.
Very interesting. Steve Kornacki, so much more to talk about as the night continues. We're going to be checking back with you in a little bit. I want to bring in Jeff Mason, a White House and Washington correspondent for Bloomberg News. Let's start in Florida with the statewide races there, including the key gubernatorial primary featuring the Trump-backed candidate, Brian Donalds, who is now the winner there. Is there a big takeaway here, or is this just another test of Trump's endorsement strength right now?
I think that's probably it. And there were some questions about whether or not that would play as well as it did in Florida. And certainly the president's track record over the last several months has largely been very good in terms of his endorsements, but not always. And in this case, it played out. So interesting to see as well just the dynamic of the Republican Party in Florida, which is saying goodbye to Governor DeSantis, who was, pardon me, very popular, and in fact more popular according to some polls there than other Republicans. So that's an interesting dynamic as well to watch that. But in this case, it was a victory for Trump, and he'll be happy about that.
And over in the Senate, we're starting to see the Democratic race, a little bit of like the progressive versus moderate debate again, something that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson seemed to capitalize on. Now let's take a listen here.
It's a fascinating thing to see the Democrat Party. They're in the midst of now an open civil war, truly. They don't know who they stand, what they stand for, who stands with them. They don't have a leader. They're kind of a rudderless ship.
So in Florida, you hear some of that framing in the headlines, but is it as ideologically stark in Florida as it's been in some other places?
It's hard to say. I mean, that absolutely is a dynamic that is playing out within the party nationwide, although I think it requires a little bit of context as well to what Speaker Johnson said there. There is also a divide in the Republican Party. It's just largely been won by MAGA and largely been won by the president's supporters. There isn't that kind of figurehead right now on the Democratic side, and so you do see this push and pull between the progressives and the more moderate candidates, and that has played out differently in different states. But honestly, as a political reporter, I think I'm really interested, and I think a lot of the country is interested to see how it will play out in November.
Yeah, and in California, we're seeing millions of dollars pouring into this special election to replace Eric Swalwell. In the final weeks, and this is a very limited time here for the amount of money that we're seeing. Super PACs backing Melissa Hernandez. They're trying to close that gap with Aisha Wahab, who's got that big lead, or we saw one in June. How much of a difference do you think that the late spending is really going to make? Or is this, I don't know, a whole lot of millions going out the window?
Well, it's certainly a lot of money. You're right to highlight that. And I can tell you just from watching the way cash is spent over various political cycles that I've covered, sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. So it's hard to say in this case if the money is really going to make the difference or not. But the one conclusion you can draw from a bunch of money being put into a race like that is that people behind that money are worried, and that's why they're putting it in behind one or the other candidate.
Yeah, and they may not be worried about money. Now I do want to talk a lot about Alaska. I've been sitting on my hands because this is the one that it blows my mind. I know polls don't close out there for another few hours. But the Senate race between Dan Sullivan and Dan Sullivan, like that is...
Dan.
What? Is there any precedent for something like this? Like, it does seem like this is quite the spoiler loophole that they've found there.
I am not aware of a precedent for the names being exactly the same, but I will say there is precedent in Alaska for people and voters in particular to pay really close attention to spelling and to names. And the example that I'll use is Lisa Murkowski, who ended up being a write-in candidate when she did not win her primary several years ago. And guess who ended up winning? Murkowski. And people knew how to spell her name, and they put her in. And she won again. So I think based on that Alaska voters are savvy enough to figure out which Dan Sullivan they want. But what is also interesting about that race is that there's a Democrat who has possibly a chance,
right.
And that's something I think we'll all be looking at closely because, boy, the Senate is close, and if Democrats are able to pull in a seat in a state that is pretty red, like Alaska and like Texas, that could change the balance of power in Washington pretty quickly.
And Dan Sullivan, I mean, like, it is a pretty common name. But do you think that this is something that we are going to see going forward, like this political play that is now being written into the playbook?
I don't know. Hard to say, but it is a fascinating dynamic. I mean, I haven't seen anything like this before.
Yeah, very interesting. We'll be watching closely tonight. Jeff Mason from Bloomberg, really appreciate you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Meanwhile, family and fans alike are still searching for answers after actress Hayden Panettiere died in South Carolina this weekend. The local police department there releasing a very heavily redacted statement in that incident report revealing that Panettiere's on and off again boyfriend, Brian Hickerson, was at the scene when police arrived, and that Hickerson showed police a bag of medication that Panettiere was reportedly taking. Now, all this as Panettiere's mom gave an exclusive interview to NBC expressing concern about Hickerson, before adding, I think young people who grow up in the entertainment industry, it is a struggle, and it's a very challenging industry, and it's not unusual for them to sadly find the wrong path. I think Hayden sadly lost her way, and I wish it were different. I wish she had stayed true to herself because she had many, many incredible attributes. And let's go to NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson over in L.A. Steve, her mother shared a lot of concern about Hickerson's role in Hayden's life, right? What else did she say?
Yeah, incredibly candid interview with our Rebecca Cohen, NBC Digital, breaking that one open, having a pretty verbose conversation with the mother there, talking about obviously the relationship to Panettiere, some of the estrangement that we know was going on that she admitted to. They haven't really had a conversation since October, maybe would text back and forth a little bit, but there was a little bit of sort of estrangement, for lack of a better word. There was a lack of a relationship there at its core for quite a while. She did say, though, that her renewed focus is on getting to the bottom of what happened, and that concerns, of course, this on again, off again boyfriend, Hickerson, I should say, Brian Hickerson, and his brother, both there at the time that she died. And so she has said she's had some widespread concerns about him and his family for quite some time. In fact, she gave us a statement. The statement reads essentially, quote, "There is a lot of history in the past that Brian has enabled Hayden many times, and this is why your father and I have been concerned for a long time about him and, frankly, his family. It's not just him, it's his family. We are trying to get information." And Gotti, she says they want to speak to a detective about this right away.
We also heard from her ex-fiance, Vladimir Klitschko, the boxer. He shared a daughter with Hayden. What did he have to say?
Yeah, young Layla, or Kaya, I should say. I'm so sorry, Kaya. You see it up there. I mean, the message is very heartfelt. These are people who got together that Hayden sort of felt like, you know, despite him being this giant in the ring, that he was more of a gentle giant with her, made her feel very protected. He said simply that, you know, for Kaya, he will speak of her mother with respect and make sure she remembers the person that she was, speaking about Hayden, of course. Very heartbreaking to hear that, and obviously everybody from Hollywood to family and friends speaking out about Hayden and how she was.
Such a tragedy. NBC's Steve Patterson, thank you. Turning now to that deadly explosion in Ohio at an industrial facility that has killed 2 people. The Toledo fire chief says that explosion ruptured tanks filled with chemicals and partially collapsed the facility's roof. Toledo's mayor confirmed that 2 people killed. Those were workers at the facility, and the cause of the explosion is still under investigation. Take a quick listen to the Toledo fire chief explaining the situation there.
It's a difficult scene to put the fire out because of the damage to the building, because of how the lot's situated. We still have a portion of the roof that's cantilevered on a wall, and so that's subject to, you know, failure, and we don't want to risk any firefighters going in a hazardous location.
Let's bring in Shaquille Brewster, who's now on the ground in Toledo. So, Shaq, what's it like on the ground, and what do we know about how this went down?
Yeah, Gotti, let's start with what we know about the 2 who were killed. You mentioned 2 workers from the plant. One was a man, the other was a woman. And when you look at the devastation that is still here, Gotti, you can just imagine the horrors that we saw this morning. I spoke to a witness who arrived here who actually was woken up by the explosion. He lives 2 miles away. He said that flames, it looked like, were shooting more than 100 feet into the sky, and he got in his car. He came over to this location and described the scene that he first saw. Listen here.
It was chaos. I couldn't tell you how many fire trucks were on scene, bystanders everywhere.
He told me that he heard multiple explosions. And when we heard from the officials give their update a little bit earlier this afternoon, they talked about how dangerous it was even for them. They knew that there was a potential that there were people who were trapped inside this facility. And at one point, firefighters had to evacuate themselves because of concern of the structural integrity. You see part of the building is collapsed right now. So harrowing scenes. You see that dramatic video, that glow and that plume of smoke on your screen right now. It's unfortunate that 2 people were lost, but you can also imagine how many others could have been injured and killed by that explosion.
And Shaq, a lot of people are watching this and they're thinking of the Boyle Heights fire with the chemicals. I know a little bit of a different situation, but are there health concerns and aftermath concerns that the community around there should be worried about here?
Yeah, that was a major question, I'll say, going into the hours after this explosion. The EPA saying that they have been monitoring the air quality, not just here at the facility, but also in the surrounding area, and that they have not uncovered any hazards in the air, which is good news. So no requirement that people wear masks, no lingering concerns over what's to come. But you might see in the distance there, Gotti, there's still white smoke coming up from this facility. We know firefighters are still actively doing what they can to control the situation. This is going to take some time, but in terms of the air quality and the concerns that you usually have with a situation like this, when you know that there are hazardous chemicals that firefighters had to encounter themselves this morning, officials are saying that that is not a concern for the surrounding area at this point.
Interesting. And have they set a timeline for how long it could be before they clean up that area?
It's going to take some time, and I think one thing that they've underscored is that there is an investigation that is well underway. We know the fire department and arson investigators will be on scene. They have already been on scene, and they will go through, which is pretty standard for a deadly incident like this. But we also know that OSHA will be investigating this. That's federal government workplace safety agency, and we know that the company that owns this plant has been under OSHA investigation before. OSHA investigating them after a plant explosion in 2015. That happened in Alabama, but it was still the same owners. And that investigation, which was the result of a deadly explosion, one that killed one person and injured several others, resulted in about a half dozen citations and even fines, about $27,000 in fines for that explosion. Of course, we don't know the cause, and yeah, I think you're looking at video of that 2015 explosion right now. We don't know the cause yet of what happened here, but there will be a lot of questions that are going to be asked of the company and those involved.
Yeah.
Got it?
And again, that video that you just saw, that was from 2015, but it sounds like the same owners. Shaq Brewster, really appreciate that. Thank you, Shaquille. And don't go anywhere. Coming up next, Meta, they are back in the courtroom facing a coalition of states who's accusing the tech giant and the social media platforms of harming kids' mental health. We are talking to California's Attorney General, one of the states leading the charge. Plus, a disturbing scene in Philadelphia, a man with a Chucky-style mask wanted for chasing and harassing people, what we are learning there. And also, if you see this QR code right here, you can scan it with your phone. Takes a second, should pop up, and that'll take you behind the scenes to YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, where you can chat with us all show long. Hey, welcome back. Here are some other headlines we are watching tonight. It has been more than a week since a New York woman disappeared in Las Vegas. Now her family is getting texts from her phone asking for cash and Bitcoin. The missing woman is 63 years old. Her daughter says she's worried about her well-being, and the Vegas police say her missing persons case is active, but so far they have not come up with any leads. And a video shows bystanders trying to pull someone out of a car after it hit a train in Massachusetts. It's not clear what led to that crash, but thankfully the person is expected to survive. And Alec Murdaugh's legal defense team is asking to move the double murder trial from the Low Country in South Carolina to a different county for a larger jury pool. Murdaugh was granted a new trial after the South Carolina Supreme Court found the former court clerk, Becky Hill, had improperly influenced jurors during his 2023 murder trial. And in Philadelphia, police are looking for a man who wore a Chucky-style horror mask and then allegedly made threats while chasing women. Police say the masked person held a phone in front of her, repeatedly asked that woman if she wanted to die. They also say he harassed other people on the street, but fortunately no one has been hurt. Super freaky. And a fight broke out in the bleachers of a Cubs versus White Sox game in Chicago last night. Video shows other fans joining in that fight before security breaks it all up. It's unclear why it started. Meanwhile, Meta is back in court again. The social media giant on trial in a landmark case. It could bring changes to Instagram and Facebook. Now, this is all over claims that Meta designed its platforms to be addictive to kids and teens, even comparing them to cigarettes. And if that sounds familiar, it's because New Mexico just took Meta to court over a similar issue on child safety and won. And now 29 states are facing off against Meta. 4 of those states are leading that charge, including California, who did not hold back in opening statements earlier. One lawyer telling the court that Meta's business model has 4 H's. Hook the users, hold them for as long as they can, harvest their data, and then hide the truth from the public. Meanwhile, Meta says, in part, their limited claims are unsubstantiated and their financial demands are vastly disproportionate. Let's bring in California's Attorney General, Rob Bonta. Rob, thank you so much for being with us. Beyond the billions of dollars that are at play here and at stake, what changes are you asking for specifically?
Yeah, we're mostly focused on changes of Meta's business practices going forward that protect our kids, that end the visiting of mental health harms on our kids, from anxiety and depression to addictive tendencies and body image issues and learning loss. And they are things like limits on duration of use, like 1 hour a day, a limit, and where you get locked out as a teen until and unless your parent allows you to have more time, or preventing use from the hours of midnight to 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. where kids should be sleeping and not being on their phones. Simple things like that, as well as age gating to make sure that only those of the appropriate age can use the platforms, Instagram and Facebook, including not having those under 13 be on the platform. So we're looking mostly for those changes going forward that protect the mental health of our kids. We've had kids engaged in self-harm, anxiety, depression, some who've killed themselves tragically. And this is about protecting the health and well-being of our children.
What do you see as the smoking gun here for liability?
There are many, and mostly, this case that as we advance it, our case in chief, if you will, our affirmative case, will rely heavily on the internal studies that Meta produced themselves and the words of Meta employees and Meta's leaders, including Mr. Zuckerberg himself. There are some employees who said IG, referring to Instagram, is a drug, and we are basically drug pushers. Those are quotes. They have internal studies where they see the harm to the mental health of kids that their features will visit on them, including, for example, a tool that mimics plastic surgery, a beauty filter, if you will, a cosmetic beauty filter. And there was a lot of red flags raised internally by employees at Meta. They said this is going to hurt the mental health of children who use this tool, this product, and we shouldn't use it. And Mr. Zuckerberg himself overruled them and said, do it, green light, deploy it. And of course, as they knew it would, it hurt kids. But Mr. Zuckerberg and others, when they were talking publicly, said their platform is safe. It doesn't hurt kids. It is the lies. It is deception. The smoking guns are their own internal studies, their own internal words when no one's looking, and then the lies that they make to the public when they deceive and misrepresent to the public.
And Meta has said that they've already made changes to protect young users. Supporters of those companies and those platforms will say this should be the responsibility and the discretion of the parents. How do you respond?
Yeah, I mean, what they're referring to are essentially tissue paper steps, defenses that are easily overridden by the swipe of a finger of a kid. It could flag and say, hey, you've been on the platform for a certain amount of time, and a kid could just swipe the finger and say, I'm going to stay on. That's not a true tool to enhance the safety of kids. And a lot of these steps that they've taken that they point to, they implemented after we sued them and after they knew they were in trouble from a legal perspective. When it comes to parents, of course, I'm a parent. Parents have a role to keep our kids safe. They make sure that their kids wear helmets when they ride their bicycle and put on their seatbelt when they ride in a vehicle. But if they're being lied to by one of the most powerful, sophisticated, richest companies in the world, who are assuring you that their product is safe, nothing to worry about here, and not telling you the truth, then parents are put at a disadvantage, aren't able to fulfill their role. Of course, there is shared responsibility here, but Meta has completely failed to fulfill its responsibility.
Attorney General Rob Bonta, really appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll see how all of this develops. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Sinandela. Angela, I'm not sure if you got to hear that, but it's very, very interesting to hear that perspective right after New Mexico won that major case against Meta over nearly the same thing. How much could that victory and that jury decision influence this case?
Hey, Gotti. Yeah, the impact will be enormous with regards to what happened in New Mexico. But I do want to be clear that there's no sort of binding precedent here because New Mexico just applied New Mexico law. And this is a federal trial that is bringing together 4 different states' consumer protection laws and then also a federal children's privacy law. So the judge will not specifically be looking to what happened in New Mexico. But the value here is still enormous for the states, in terms of momentum, in terms of leverage, and also in terms of the roadmap, because the plaintiffs essentially ran the same legal theory that Meta deceived the public, that they knew of the harms, that they intentionally created these addictive tools, and that they lied to the public about it. So they will be able to know here what witnesses worked, what documents landed, where Meta's defenses failed. And so they will learn so much from what happened in New Mexico. But one point also to clarify further is that while in New Mexico, enormous penalties in terms of dollars were enforced or will be enforced, the court still refrained from forcing Meta to make massive product changes, which is also what the states are asking for here, Gotti.
Yeah. It's not just money. It's actually, changing the code and changing algorithms and changing features within those platforms, which is very significant. I do want to ask, though, I mean, in that interview that we just had with the Attorney General from California, he was listing what sounds like, the documents from within Meta and within Instagram and possibly whistleblowers or internal emails, unsure exactly what they're going to be using for evidence here. We saw some of that come to the surface in the New Mexico trial, but what exactly are the states going to be looking to prove to show Meta designed these apps to be so addictive for their kids? Is it going to be within their own documents?
Yeah, so that really is the key to everything here, because the argument is not just that these apps are addictive, right? So look, coffee, video games, candy, all of those things are addictive. But what the allegations are here are really design to knowledge to deception, so that all of these addictive features were not just neutrally engineered, but that they were intentionally engineered to hook and addict young people. And then after that knowledge, so this is where all of those documents and all of those studies are going to be everything for the plaintiffs. So the idea that Meta actually knew of the damages, that their own employees understood how this was harming kids because they performed the research on it. And then the last part of that is deception, that they allegedly then lied bold-faced to the public about it, to Congress, and just still did this all for profits. So those documents are key to everything to prove the knowledge part, which is the whole part of this case, Scotty.
And what's Meta's defense here?
So they actually do have a lot of defenses, right? So the first is that if you look at big tobacco, cigarettes back then were pretty known to cause cancer. There was science. There were a lot of studies behind that. What is alleged here, this concept of social media addiction, that's not really a well-known psychiatric diagnosis. So it's a little bit more difficult to connect the dots directly to harm. They're also going to argue alternative causation, point fingers at all sorts of things and say mental health in teenagers is not just our problem. It stems from so many issues that are way beyond our control. And then lastly, it's going to be something that the Attorney General did touch on here, which is the fact that they're going to say, look how much we actually did do. We put forth all of these changes to protect teens. So while we may have known that our apps could possibly addict and harm young people, we made so many changes to proactively and preemptively change that. But, as he did note, those changes seem to have come largely after the lawsuit started. And so that will certainly work in the plaintiff's favor here, Gotti.
Yeah, quite the coalition of states. Angela Sinandela, appreciate your insight. Thank you. And now to day 2 of the murder trial for Dwayne Keefe Davis. Davis is accused of orchestrating the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur. Today we heard from a lot of witnesses, like the police who responded to the shooting. We also heard from hotel employees and a medical examiner. NBC's Dana Griffin has more.
Tonight, the graphic images of Tupac's body revealed to the jury.
This is an entrance gunshot wound.
Some of his family walking out of the courtroom before a forensic pathologist testified Tupac died from gunshot wounds to his chest and abdomen.
Do you have an opinion as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
The night of the shooting, video from the MGM Grand shows Tupac leaving the venue after that beatdown of defendant Dwayne Keefe D. Davis's nephew, Orlando Anderson. Hours later, Tupac is gunned down in what prosecutors call a retaliatory drive-by shooting.
Treat me as a hostile witness.
An associate of Suge Knight, James McDonald, who says he did not want to be here, testified about gang retaliation culture.
I don't want to send him to prison.
Sure.
Even though we don't like each other.
Biggie got killed. I didn't even hear those shots. I just see the crowd running. I was like...
Audio from a 1997 police interview played in court revealing Davis was in a car outside the Los Angeles party where Christopher Biggie Smalls Wallace was gunned down. Why the recording was introduced remains unclear. Defense attorney Michael Samft telling reporters his strategy is to paint Davis's statements, including his own memoir, where he admits to being involved in Tupac's death, as unreliable.
Yeah, you're essentially telling the jury that your client is a liar.
Yep, I am. Yes, that's true.
Another witness testifying about the tension between rival record labels Death Row and Bad Boy. He said at times tensions were so high that things turned violent. Gotti?
Dana, thank you. Meanwhile, across the country, another high-profile trial is taking place in Massachusetts. Today, in the trial against a mother accused of killing her 3 children, Lindsay Clancy's defense team called in her mother-in-law, and she took the stand.
She was begging for help. Lindsay was struggling. We were all very concerned.
Lawyers for Clancy are trying to make the case that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis when she killed her children. NBC's Steve Romo is here with a very busy day in court.
Yeah, Gotti, things are moving fast now as the defense presents their case. Today we heard from a forensic psychologist for the defense, Dr. Paul Zeisel, and he testified that he visited Lindsay in the hospital shortly after the killings. He was asked to go there by the defense attorney, Kevin Reddington, to evaluate Lindsay's mental health after these killings took place. Now, while he was there, Zeisel, we heard him testify, allowed Lindsay to call her now ex-husband Patrick on the phone. She had not talked to him in quite some while. We know that from the testimony about this call, the first time we heard about the voices, that Lindsay had reported hearing voices. Zeisel saying on that call, Lindsay told Patrick that on the day of the killings, she heard a male voice order her to kill the children and then kill herself, and that she did not have a choice to do that. Very difficult day in the courtroom to hear all of this. Now, this will likely be key to the defense saying that Lindsay was in a state of psychosis, a break from reality during these killings. Zeisel's testimony also included descriptions of people with psychoses having different symptoms and symptoms that can wax and wane and come and go. He also testified that Lindsay was an honest patient, that he felt like she was being honest with him. The prosecutors did not get a chance to do that cross-examination today, that coming up tomorrow, but we also heard on the defense side from other experts, and we also heard from Lindsay's former mother-in-law, Patrick's mother, Susan Clancy, who testifying for the defense that Lindsay was a good mother who was clearly struggling and was trying to get help. It was a difficult day of testimony. We heard from a forensic psychologist as well who gave some details about how the children were killed. Just so difficult for the jurors, yet another day like that. And sadly, Gotti, there are likely going to be more difficult days of testimony that the jurors are going to have to listen to.
A tragedy all around. Steve Romo, thank you so much. And coming up, a routine arrest takes a turn after a deck collapses, sending a group of officers to the ground. Look at that. The whole thing caught on camera. We'll be right back with more. job charging. What was that word that we came up with for people that have battery issues? We made up a word. AI helped us make up a word. It was like it was low baddies. I'm a low baddie. I'm a low baddie kind of guy, guys. Sorry.
90.
The stream, and it happened right when I was like, hey, everybody come on in. But you know what? If it doesn't work here, then I'm just going to switch over here, and then I'll just join from this side. So now I have a backup plan. It's a little fly by the seat of your pants on the stream side. On the news side, on the, NBC News Now, we've got the control room. The control room's not. 30 Rock is usually there. But obviously, there are so many people behind the scenes making the television side perfectly seamless. Never have problems. Knock on wood.
30 seconds.
But this is stream. This is the behind the scenes. It gets a little messy, so. Shoot. All right, I just had to restart.
10 seconds, stand by.
10 seconds, here we go.
In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, right now there is a nationwide push to designate open water lifeguards as first responders. That's something that came up at the White House yesterday as President Trump sat next to a 16-year-old lifeguard who saved a kid last month. Watch.
I'd like to put my weight behind it, so let's take a look at it. Very important.
And right now, open water lifeguards don't have access to crucial benefits because they are not recognized as first responders despite being trained to save lives. Telemundo meteorologist Gabby Dayan explains the efforts underway to try to change that.
Whether it's police, EMT, or firefighters, all first responders share one thing in common. When everybody runs from danger, they run towards it.
Our lifeguards are out here on the beaches, and we are the first ones to respond to any type of water-related emergency, but we're not actually first responders by government designations.
Now, a new push from open water lifeguards across the country to be federally recognized as first responders. Like these lifeguards at Jones Beach were working non-stop.
Last night, we ran over 40 rescues on this one particular field alone.
In addition to advanced first aid and professional CPR, those challenging situations require intense training. What does the training look like?
It's going to be demanding physically, mentally, psychologically, but it's also going to consist of a lot of running, a lot of swimming, a lot of high-intensity cardiovascular work, learning how to use a rescue board.
We got a front row seat to some of those drills, preparing them for one of the biggest threats.
Rip currents act as treadmills of the ocean, pulling swimmers away up to 8 feet per second. In those situations, help can be the difference between life and death.
The majority of the rescues that occur in any open body of water are from rip currents. A trained professional open water lifeguard knows where the rip currents are. They're able to detect them and see them.
Climate change and warming waters increasing the number of encounters with marine life. Lifeguards say adding an extra layer of danger.
It almost seems like unfair, right? Like, why do we risk our lives every day to save the general public and we don't have that designated first responder status?
Matthew Zucchetti is spearheading the federal effort for recognition.
We're not asking for funds. We're just asking for the proper respect that we earned. Without lifeguards, people die.
The resolution waiting to be voted on by the House of Representatives aims to give lifeguards the official designation of emergency response providers. Zucchetti says if it passes, open water lifeguards could be afforded the same benefits as other first responders in their state.
It's line of duty death benefits. Another aspect of it is the mental health issue. If a lifeguard has some type of mental health issue, some type of PTSD from an on-the-job response, as a first responder, a recognized first responder, now they have coverage.
New Jersey and Hawaii already ahead of the curve. Both states officially recognizing lifeguards as first responders in the last few months. The lifeguards at Jones Beach risking it all for a change.
We love our jobs and we love what we do. We love protecting the public. Lifeguards around the United States and around the world have one goal in mind: to make sure that everyone that visits the beach comes home from the beach.
A push for recognition from coast to coast.
Yeah, that important job description in the name, lifeguard. Fascinating, something to think about the next time you go to the beach. Gabby Dayan, thank you so very much. Over in Missouri, a group of U.S. Marshals, they were doing a routine arrest, they say, when this freak accident on top of a deck sent them plummeting to the ground. That collapse was caught on camera. NBC's Marquise Francis has more.
These U.S. Marshals Task Force members recently serving an arrest warrant in Missouri. Never imagined the hidden threat beneath them. A second-story deck at an apartment complex collapses, sending 9 deputies plummeting to the ground. The marshals say injured task force members suffered broken bones, torn muscles, and head injuries, but luckily all will return to work soon. The U.S. Marshals Service is the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the country. They provide federal court security, do asset forfeiture, and witness protection. But they're most known for hunting down the nation's most notorious fugitives, as dramatized in the 90s hit movie, The Fugitive. Of course, it can be dangerous in real life, too.
Every single day, they're getting bitten by dogs, they're getting shot at, they're engaged in gunfights.
U.S. Marshal Service, come to the door!
They're going after murderers, gang leaders, drug kingpins, and mafia members.
Come outside. Come outside now.
Deputies nationwide arrest almost 300 suspected fugitives a day, including going overseas to do so. This stop for sex offender 26-year-old Jacob Alexander Munoz, convicted of possession of child pornography and placed on the Missouri Sex Offender Registry upon his release from prison. But several months ago, he allegedly stopped reporting to his parole officer, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. We were unable to reach him for comment, and he does not have counsel assigned. Authorities say previous searches of his apartment turned up numerous firearms. This time, there's no indication it was anything but a freak accident. But their supervisor says everyone is fortunate it wasn't worse.
The fact that they hit the ground in 2 seconds and there was no accidental discharge of any firearms or anything like that, it's very surprising.
It turns out Munoz wasn't even at the apartment. He later turned himself in.
Had that bad guy been in there, it would have been up to the other marshals covering the doors to return fire, to protect them.
Working to protect each other and the public, or even what should be a routine case turns dangerous. Marquise Francis, NBC News.
Wow, Marquise, thank you. And coming up, in the race to space, China making strides and launching 2 rockets, and an update on SpaceX's Starship that's been floating out at sea. Crews look like they're wanting to get it back to Texas, and they may make that happen. All right. Okay, guys, I'm back. And am I on mute? Nope, I'm not on mute. And am I on my laptop? Yes, I am. Sorry for all the technical problems, guys. BK Vance says, "What up, everybody?" Spaceship says, "Paywatch." Spaceship, you got some pretty funny things to say. Yeah, instead of Baywatch, Paywatch, because they should get paid more. They should have more benefits. I like that. It's a very, very clever observation. Let's see. Lisa, how does having a clean anchor handoff work between 2 control rooms? Yeah, Lisa, because I don't know. I have no idea how that works. Where's Lisa? There she is.
What was the question?
How does having a clean anchor handoff work between 2 different control rooms?
Wow.
Or how are you going to do the handoff with me tonight? Because I think we're doing specials after, right?
Well, you're on call for specials afterwards because we're supposed to get some calls in the Wyoming primary in the 9 o'clock hour. But I don't believe there are any races at the moment.
Okay. Well, how does a clean anchor handoff happen between 2 control rooms?
I mean, basically, you guys are dialed into each other, and essentially, we treat it like
a live shot,
like a
right?
live shot, like a producer in the field, so they can hear each other. Just like if Scotty was, standing on the rink in Rockefeller Center, they hear each other in different locations, and we just hand it over that way. There are times depending.
Wait, hurry up because there's another really good question for you.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
How much time do you have in the rundown for padding?
15. I am a professional, so I only put in 10 seconds.
Oh my gosh. And then did you see Max? I saw you worked at several MS Now shows. You ultimately drew you to stick with NBC News.
Stand by.
Okay, here we go.
5, 4, 3.
Hey, welcome back. Tonight we are headed back up to space because there is a lot going on. First, there are some brand new pictures that dropped of that SpaceX lunar impact we told you about earlier this month. They are wild. They're at least wild to me. Look, this is the rocket. Watch, where is it? Oh, there's the rocket, that little white thing. And then, watch this. Here it comes. Boom! There's a big old crater on the moon that wasn't there before. This could give NASA a ton of data on how moon dust is kicked up, which is going to be a very, very important engineering problem that we want to start addressing if we're going to be building bases up there. Meanwhile, it looks like China, they took one step back, then 2 steps forward. It was just over a week ago that we saw this Chinese rocket sort of collapse, then explode on itself just 90 seconds after launch. But then, in the last 24 hours, China successfully launched not 1, but 2 rockets back to back, with another set to take off later tonight. More on that in just a little bit, but some big strides happening over there. And then remember, Starship 13, yes, it came down in the Indian Ocean, and we thought it was going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Elon Musk was basically saying, okay, we tried, and it's not looking good. Well, against all odds, it has now been successfully towed to a place called Christmas Island near Australia, and there are questions swirling over whether they might be able to get it all the way back to Texas. Quite the recovery mission, but it does look like it's going well, and we are going to be seeing more of that. Finally today, while we all went around our world here, went about our days like normal Earthlings, high above us, a historic 6.5-hour spacewalk outside the ISS in order to replace a critical antenna there. So let's bring in former astronaut Leroy Chow to talk all things space. So Leroy, you know a thing or two about these spacewalks. I'm pretty sure you helped set up like the main data, the OG data link on the ISS. What are these missions like?
Sure, that's right. This spacewalk, replacing the what's called the SCANT antenna, the space-to-ground antenna. I installed the original one with my partner Bill MacArthur. We were outside in spacesuits in the year 2000 on STS-92, which was aboard Space Shuttle Discovery. We were the second major assembly mission of the space station program, and we installed the data link, the main data link between the station and the ground. And so today's EVA was to replace that antenna. It had done a lot of good work over the last 26 years, frankly lasted longer than I think anyone expected it to. And unfortunately, they ran into a few hiccups, but they got partially done. But they're going to have to go back out on Tuesday, I believe, to go and finish the job. But I'm sure they'll get it done with no problem. So, yeah, as you said, a lot of stuff going on in space.
Yeah, 26 years, that is wild. But I didn't even think about that. And yeah, 2026, data link must have seemed like such cutting-edge technology. Now we're like, antenna. That sounds like old-school technology. And now we live in this new day and age where there's new things happening. And one of them is bobbing out there in the Indian Ocean, or at least maybe is somewhat on shore now, this Starship thing. So many people were watching that. We were surprised that it was floating for so long. Then we were surprised when we saw boats pulling it. And now it's still bobbing around in the ocean. What did you think?
Oh, this was great. It was a very successful flight test 13 of the Starship. Obviously, the Starship, the ship itself, was able to splash down and remain intact, did not explode. And so if SpaceX can get out there, they don't necessarily have to bring it all the way back to Texas, but if they can send engineers out to examine this, they'll learn a lot just from looking at what remains of it, and it's all largely intact. So that talks a little bit about the robustness of the program, of the vehicle. So it's very exciting. I'm sure the SpaceX engineers are chomping at the bit to examine it.
Yeah, they have two different options. They can, get it back to Starbase somehow, or they can just, build a pad there, get a booster there, and, wait a few years, and maybe that's going to be the next spaceport. China, though, China is something that people continue to sleep on. Back-to-back launches. I saw last week there were a lot of people that were making fun of, what happened during Max Q for one of them. Then today, no one's laughing. 2 very successful launches. How do you see China's acceleration in this space race developing here?
Sure, China's in this for the long haul. They've had a robust space program going for a number of years now. They are operating a space station. They are doing regular crew exchanges, regular experiments, and spacewalks outside. And probably a lot of the world, the Western world's not even aware of it. But yeah, they had suffered a setback. They had a failure of a Long March 7 rocket, but that didn't slow them down. They launched, I believe, 2 Long March 12 rockets, launching satellites, and it's not slowing them down. So they're in this for the long haul. And, we, the United States, we need to be careful because we don't want to let them kind of eclipse us as the leaders in spaceflight, particularly human spaceflight. And so, I think there's a lot of excitement that's coming up.
Yeah. And not to, I'm not a person that keeps track of score or anything, but SpaceX did just launch a couple of back-to-back rockets, and it is neck and neck when you really look at the cadence these days. Speaking of SpaceX, we got those new images of Falcon 9, the crater crashing into the moon. For me, moon dust is always one of those scary things that I don't know if we've fully addressed here. What do you see us learning from the high-fidelity images that we're seeing come back now?
Well, astronomers and other scientists were very excited about this impact. They were able to examine it with telescopes and look at the plume, analyze the plume that came up. You're taking regolith, or dirt, that has never been exposed to the surface before, and they're studying the plumes. They're studying all these things. It's not the first time we've impacted into the moon. Other rocket stages, upper stages, have impacted in the past. During the Apollo program, we intentionally crashed upper stages into the moon because seismometers left behind by the astronauts, the Apollo astronauts, were used to measure and better understand what the inside of the the moon looks like, and different characteristics. So this was an important, by chance, scientific opportunity to learn more about the moon.
Look, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an astronaut, but I have a feeling that, regolith is going to be the first swear word up there on the moon when people start working up there. Leroy, great to see you. Thank you so very much for stopping by. And still to come, the service that once let you get 12 CDs for just a penny, well, they're shutting down. A look back at how Columbia House defined a generation. But first, you got to see this. This fire broke out at a middle school in Virginia, and a lot of people have been quick to blame Nanner, this 8-foot-long python who was at the scene of the crime slithering around. Fire officials thought the snake had knocked over a heat lamp, sparking that fire. But Nanner's owner says surveillance video tells a different story, showing that the fire was already burning before the snake escaped her enclosure. Fire officials now say Nanner, well, maybe she contributed to the blaze, but the exact cause is still under investigation. Something's suspicious. We'll be right back. All right. There we go. Yikes. Why are they called spacewalks when they're floating? Why does this chat have the smartest questions today? God. I didn't even think. I've said spacewalks 1 trillion times in my life. I've never even thought about that. They should be called space floats. Space floats, right? All right. Oh, I learned space flights linger in low Earth orbit for an hour before exiting to space. It depends. Some of them do, some of them don't. Keep it like this, Gotti. Eddie Santiago, welcome. I like your stuff here. Carla Leon, hello. Melly, hey, happy Tuesday to you, Melly. Kornacki wrapped early? Huh, interesting. Because pride. Well, in LA, I have a good charger and check it for him. Just saying, LA studio is the best. Yeah, that's Kevin, and he's the best. Have you ever thrown out the rundown and just flown by the seat of our pants? Oh, we do that. We do that pretty frequently. Anytime you see breaking news, it's pretty much what's happening. I never paid Columbia House. I was 14. Spaceship. I got bamboozled once, and then...
You were not 14 when Columbia House was a thing.
That's Spaceship. Spaceship says that.
Oh, okay, good. I had to call you out on that.
No, I was well off to the races. I was like 18. Yeah, and I definitely got pulled in by that one penny thing, but then I was very, very upset about the indignation and
because they would have a monthly
yeah,
option.
they didn't tell us teenagers that.
Yeah, and you had to opt out of it.
So then I went to Napster, and then I was like, torrents. Yeah, how does this torrent world work? Anyway,
Napster and LimeWire.
LimeWire, yep. Burnt regolith didn't smell like cheese sandwich before it's Campbell corn. That is a very descriptive comment there. Saw you on Weekend Nightly. Aw, thanks for watching.
15.
EVAs, that's right. 15 seconds, here we go. I look like a completely different person. Yeah, I look crazy without my glasses.
Stand by.
My eyes are crossed. Here we go.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2.
Hey, welcome back. Do you remember Columbia House? Well, before there was Spotify or Apple Music, before there was Napster, before there was Netflix, there was Columbia House. And after 71 years, they are facing the music. They're shutting down. Take a look.
It was a jingle for a simpler time. You remember the deal, 12 brand new CDs for a single cent.
Get 12 CDs free.
But after more than a half a century, the mail-order music club Columbia House announced it's no longer taking new orders starting next month.
This is how majority of us started our music collection.
It's the best part of the day.
Columbia House is especially popular in the 90s, a time of R&B, rock, and power ballads.
It just felt like such a disruptive, glorious, Christmas morning.
But what is that deal? 12 CDs for 1 penny? Too good to be true?
I didn't pay their late fee. I had debt collectors come in for me.
The fine print was quite the doozy.
The fine print was pretty lethal. In the next month in the mail, you get a Carlos Santana CD, and you're like, I don't know what this is, and it costs $28, right? And it's clearly, and you understand immediately, I did this.
Listen, Dad.
Did you join the Columbia Record Club?
And while CDs seem to be having a nostalgia-driven moment, Columbia House has now gone the way of the penny, out of circulation and facing the music in a digital world.
And for the record, Carlos Santana is a genius. That's going to do it for us tonight. I'm Gotti Schwartz. We'll see you here tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned to NBC News Now. All righty then.
All clear.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Stream. Asta. Bye, Kev. Bye, everybody. Nothing too good to be true in American antiquity. Yeah, that's pretty true. Okay, bye, guys. See you tomorrow.